I figured it'd stop with both because normally we have like, like at least 5 or 10, till we start really going.
Right. I'm clicking on the link on Facebook and it's stopping at the countdown.
It says now live on your channel. Let's see.
That's the problem. What's going on?
It says live. Let's see what it does.
It says we are live.
Now we've got 2 people watching.
Okay, so that's good.
Now there's 7, Chris. So I think you fixed it.
Good. Go,
Yeah,
Chris.
I think you fixed it.
Are we going to give it a couple minutes or are we just going to roll into it?
No, I think. Let's see. Did you? It seems like you fixed YouTube, honey. We have to call back in.
Yeah, try calling back in. Oh, gotta love this.
It kicked me out.
Yeah, it
Kicked you
kicked
out?
me out too, but I'm back.
All right. Steph's gonna call back here.
Okay.
You take a month off. That's what happens, huh?
Oh, now I think we're cooking with grease.
Yeah, let's give us a minute, folks. We're
Yep. Give us just a minute, guys. We're rusty when we're off for 6 weeks.
No kidding, right?
Chris gets no more vacations.
Just stand by, guys. We're gonna have Jackie do a presentation on the digestive system, and then we're gonna roll in with questions and answers. But we're having a little technical difficulty. Did you get Facebook to come up, Chris?
no, I just finally got YouTube working.
Okay.
So, fortunately, YouTube is without shutting it all down again. I guess I don't.
Then we just go with YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I can see people commenting on YouTube, so at least that is working.
Yeah. So you want to roll with it, Chris?
Yeah, we're gonna have to. Facebook's just doing its thing, and
Well, while we're doing the presentation, you can just put something out on Facebook that with the link that just says "Come join us on YouTube." That unfortunately the Facebook isn't working.
yeah.
Either you or Blake.
Trying to.
Does that work?
Yeah, we'll get it.
Okay. All right, guys. Welcome everybody. If you're here, we appreciate it. We're trying to get through a little bit of bugs. I know we've been off for a little while, but we're here to answer your questions. You've got myself, Jackie, Blake, Chris behind the scenes. Jackie is going to give a presentation. It's going to be about maybe 10, 15 minutes on the newest changes to the digestive system. So she's going to go through that. We're going to put the 38 CFR with the updated changes in the comment section so you can click on it. So as she's explaining anything, if you want to see some of the codes, then you could go ahead and do that. Why don't we go ahead and get the disclaimer out of the way, Chris, real quick?
Okay.
Just to put this out there, Veterans Helping Veterans is not an accredited agent, VSO, attorney, or entity recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs, VA, and is not affiliated with the VA in any way. We do not assist veterans with the preparation, presentation, and prosecution of VA disability claims for benefits. This Q&A is solely for guidance purposes and should not be considered as medical or legal advice. All right. So also, while we're talking about this, Chris, you can also drop in the link for the video. So with that, let's roll.
All right.
Jackie, you're up.
Jeff, you have to send me the link again in the message.
Okay, I'll do that while Jackie is talking.
All right.
Okay, can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so this is the introduction to the new digestive system rate and schedule change. If you did not know, the rate and schedule for the digestive system changed on May 19th. So there's some pretty good changes in there. So we're just going to briefly touch on them and make people familiar and aware of them, okay? So big changes, all right? So VA removed 38 CFR 4.100 and 4.111 for ulcers and post-gastrostomy, or however you say it, Blake.
What is that?
Gastrectomy.
Thank you, sir. Systems, so they removed these from the CFR. They also updated language, so it updates and better defines what stipulates as weight loss, baseline weight, undernutrition, and what nutritional support is. Chris is going to put the link for the CFR. We're not doing it like a really in-depth look at this. We're just making you aware. So if you have any questions or want to see the actual new verbiage and stuff, all you have to do is go to 38 CFR and you can read it to your heart's delight. All right. So they also removed a few different diagnostic codes. So Denito ulcer. I'm not going to even try to say all these. They're not super common and they're not claimed a lot. So they were just removed. A lot of these diseases are ones that we just don't see a lot. So you want to take a quick look. Very good. All right. One of the huge changes that's actually going to benefit veterans a lot is the pyramid in consideration. So we know a lot of the digestive system conditions have a lot of overlap. So you can't be compensated for the same symptoms under different disease processes or diseases, whatnot. So before these changes, it was pretty inclusive. Now there's actually a few more that they added and they changed the verbiage in the CFR. So this verbiage is actually in the 38 CFR under the digestive changes. So if you have two conditions and they match these diagnostic codes, they're likely going to be combined.
Some of the major differences, obviously, that people are most interested in know is the IBS.
We'll get to that in a future slide because you're right, absolutely. Everybody wants to know about that, so I broke it down. So a few additions. They added, let's see, so DC code 7350, 7352, and then all the diagnostic codes included and in between 7355 and 7357. Inclusive. So if you have two of these conditions and they match these numbers or in between these numbers, they're going to be most likely combined for VA rating purposes. All right, so they did update a lot of the evaluative criteria. They updated language. They changed how they're going to rate some things. Again, changed the verbiage in the 38 CFR. Chris already put the link in the chat, so you can go in and you can actually visualize these changes. The big changes. And this is
Yeah.
probably what people are most interested in. So there is a new diagnostic code for GERD. It's 7206. It was previously rated under 7346, tax 7399, because it didn't have its own designation in the CFR.
Yeah.
Now it has its own diagnostic code, and notably, if you take a look, it's 7206. So we were just talking about the diagnostic codes, and if you look under the pyramid in one,
Yep.
7206 is not there. And that's going to be important because it's going to allow certain conditions to be evaluated separately, where before they had to always be evaluated together.
And I think a good point to bring up, what do you think about this, is the rating percentages of those specific ones that veterans are most concerned that you are aware of, like the GERD and the IBS under the new criteria. Those.
Yeah, we could honestly, there was so many changes to the
Yeah.
evaluation criteria. That's why I said refer to the CFR, because we literally could talk 5 hours on how those changed and
Yep.
the different things, but there was a lot of changes. So if you are thinking about claiming or service connected for digestive condition, you're definitely going to want to take a look and see if that criteria or updated criteria is beneficial to you. So
Yeah.
GERD, which is the huge one, GERD can now be separately evaluated from IBS. Previous to May 19th, it had to be combined due to the pyramid and rules. I think this is probably one of the best changes VA has done since the PACT Act. So now if you are service connected for GERD and IBS, it should be combined. Now you can file a claim if you think it would be more advantageous for you to be separately evaluated. You can put in a claim and they can separately and separate those for you. Let's see. So Barrett's esophagus now is going to be rated on esophagus strictures and symptoms associated with passing liquids. We have peptic ulcer disease, which was previously under diagnostic code 7307, which was gastric ulcer. It has its own diagnostic code under the 7304 now.
Yeah.
Additionally, to note, diagnostic code 7307 for chronic gastritis.
Oh.
And 7309 for stenosis of the stomach are going to be rated under the evaluation criteria for 7304. For cirrhosis of the liver, the evaluation criteria in the diagnostic code have been updated. So now it's going to be diagnostic code 7312. It's now going to be evaluated based on a more widely accepted model for end-stage liver disease scores and their associated symptoms, which, if this isn't super common, but it's common enough that this is going to be a great change for a lot of people suffering from this condition if it's service connected.
Yeah.
The gallbladder removal, the evaluated criteria has been updated for that as well. It's going to be better defined and more clear. It's going to be under the diagnostic code 7318 still. It's just been renamed. It's been renamed from the gallbladder removal to the cholecystectomy. Did I get it, Blake? Is it close?
He's not listening to us.
All right, and then
sorry, I'm muted. Cholecystectomy.
I was close enough. So it's going to be evaluated based on like strictures and biliary leaks and whatnot. Irritable bowel syndrome. It used to be kind of named under irritable colon syndrome. We all know it's irritable bowel syndrome. They changed it finally, and the evaluative criteria is updated. It's less subjective, whereas they're looking for mild, medium, or moderate or severe. So the criteria is updated if you're evaluated for this, and a lot of veterans are. definitely take a look and see if this is going to apply to you.
Can I stop you on that note real quick? Because that's usually one of the most popular ones.
Yeah, of
That
course.
criteria, that criteria on 10, 20, 30 versus 0, 10, 30, how it was before. Prior it was,
Mhm.
remember? Do
Yeah.
you think that this is overall reading this I feel like it's better. Like I feel like IBS is gonna allow for a better, I guess a better rating because it was always just 0, 10, or 30. Now I know you can still get 0, right? You could always,
Yes, of course.
right? Okay. But do you think that this for IBS seems very more, like you were saying, subjective, like it's better?
Yeah, absolutely. So, before the schedule change, it was, so severe. So severe diarrhea, alternating diarrhea and constipation with more or less constant abdominal distress. Moderate was frequent episodes of
Yep.
bowel disturbance with abdominal distress, and mild was disturbances of bowel function with occasional episodes of abdominal distress. So that's like kind of subjective and it's really non-specific. So I personally believe that this criteria is going to be a lot easier to actually properly evaluate things because a lot of it's subjective, right? The doctor and
Right.
the nurse are going to be in the restroom with you. So, for example, for a 10% evaluation under the new criteria, it's going to be abdominal pain related to defecation at least once during the previous 3 months, and two or more of the following: one, a change in stool frequency; two,
Yep.
a change in stool form; three, altered stool passage such as straining and or urgency; four, mucoria. I don't even know what that is.
Mucorrhea?
Yeah.
Almost like diarrhea, but mucorrhea.
Blake, do you know what that is? I honestly don't. Unmute yourself.
I'm not seeing it.
Uh,
Well, how do you pronounce? Well, we can't share my screen at the
right.
moment.
Can you put it in
Mucorrhea.
the chat and then he can take a look at it, stuff?
Okay, you
Uh,
want to share my screen, Chris?
You need
Because
to
I
share.
have it up. Huh?
You need to share your screen.
Actually, you know what, Steph? It's just one thing. We can look it up
Yeah,
after. Address it.
Okay.
I can look at.
Let's go through this. Um, Five was abdominal bloating, and six is subjective distension. So as you can see, for a 10% criteria, it is way more clear and it's easier to substantiate. So I do think that this is
Okay.
going to be an incredible change for the veterans.
There it is. Here.
Yeah,
I don't know.
mucorrhea.
Yeah, what is that?
Mucus in your stool.
Okay. Okay.
Whoa, so
Okay.
simple, so hard. Okay.
Okay.
So the next one would be Crohn's disease. So they just renamed the diagnostic code 7326 from chronic enterocolitis to Crohn's disease or undifferentiated form of an inflammatory bowel disease. And it's going to have its own evaluative criteria now, and it's going to be based on the severity of associated symptoms. Another
Okay.
big change, rectum and anus. So the evaluated criteria for 7332 has been updated, and it includes a more defined evaluative criteria. So, with I'm not talking about hemorrhoids, I'm talking about
Right.
rectum and anus, but it's just more specific, and it's going to be easier to give people a compensable evaluation. All right. Hemorrhoids, they updated, they can still do a 0% evaluation, but it again has more of a definitive evaluative criteria.
Yep.
For hernias, we have diagnostic code 7338, and it's relabeled. They just changed the name of it. And it's combining a lot of those hernias, with the exception of the hiatal hernia, into a single diagnostic code. The
Hey,
evaluative criteria has also been updated for that condition.
Jackie, on 7336 on hemorrhoids, because I had a lot of people argue with me, telling me that they had it combined with IBS and GERD, and I said no, it's been a separate rating forever. They just changed the criteria. Was it 0, 10, and 20, and they did away with the 0, and now it's 10, 20?
Correct. So it used to be 0 for mild or moderate, and then it
Yep.
was 10 or 20, and now it's 10 or 20. Now, not to say that you can't
Right.
be connected for it, but for the compensable evaluations.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. All right. And then the last one, diagnostic code 7346. So that if it sounds familiar, it's because it was the one that GERD was rated analogously to. It was updated to actually reflect hiatal hernia and paraesophageal hernia.
That's my question. That is where the biggest confusion is on that. Because it goes back to being rated under the new 7203.
Okay, 7203 is not in that pyramid of considerations for digestive, so you can be evaluated for something like, unless, okay, so I didn't get to finish what I was saying. So the evaluative criteria was also updated. So it's going to be rated based on the criteria, but it's going to be evaluated under diagnostic code 7203. So that's what allows it to be evaluated separately. So anything that starts with a 7.2, there's not really those super pyramid and considerations, because if you remember, they all started with 7.3. All right. Okay. And I can't, every veteran's different and every story is different. So a lot of times it's going to depend on how it affects you. Everybody's different. So, if you have the same symptoms for two different conditions, you can only be evaluated for those symptoms once. So, this is very generalized, and the brief really down and dirty just to get it out there on how people may benefit or not benefit, because it's going to be really important that each veteran, if they're going to put in and want to potentially change their evaluation, they're going to want to look at all these changes and make sure that it's not going to negatively affect them, which I'll get more into in a second. But, you don't want to open the you don't want to open the box if it's not going to be beneficial to you. You know what I mean? So
right. Right. Like where Blake and I were talking, Jackie, if a veteran is currently rated right now, combined IBS and GERD at 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's possible. It's not possible to distinguish which portion is 20, 10, 30, 0. So if they were to go and say, hey, I want my IBS and GERD now rated separately, they can go before the VA and ask for those to be rated separately. But could it backfire?
Well, yeah, like I said, I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but that's actually incorrect, because if the IBS and GERD is rated correctly in the rating decision, when they combine pyramid and stuff like that, they're supposed to, in the rating decision letter, not only give you the evaluative criteria that you're actually being evaluated. So let's say, for example, the veteran is service connected for IBS, which would be 30% disabling, and they're service connected for GERD, which would be 10% disabling. Now we know previously this was pyramiding, so it was combined, and because the 30% evaluation is more advantageous to the veteran, the higher two evaluations apply, and the veteran is granted that 30% evaluation for IBS and GERD at 30%. Now, even though VA is granting the 30% for IBS, they're supposed to put the evaluative criteria in the rating decision also for GERD, to explain to the veteran why they chose the higher of two evaluations.
Okay.
So if the veteran has access to their rating decision letter, it should be there. If it's not there, well, it's wrong. But it doesn't affect the evaluation, because let's be honest, in the majority of cases, IBS is going to, under the old diagnostic criteria, IBS is almost always going to be rated higher than GERD. So it's not going to necessarily affect the veteran, but the evaluative criteria for both really should have been in there. And I apologize if I'm talking a little bit fast. I'm not trying to take all night to go over all this stuff, and I want to make sure we get the time for the questions.
Bam.
So I'm just rolling through. So yeah, so this is, another thing that, everybody wants to know. So this is huge. So a readjustment to the rating schedule is not grounds for reduction of a disability rating in effect on the date of the readjustment, unless medical evidence establishes the disability to be evaluated has actually been improved. So what is this in lay terms? What this means, let's say you are currently evaluated for 30% for IBS, but under the new rating schedule, you would be evaluated at 20%. VA cannot reduce your evaluation unless there is evidence that the condition has actually improved. All right. So
There you go. Okay.
where this would really come into play is if you currently have a claim pending, or maybe you've been continuously appealing or continuously pursuing a claim. So let's say you have a longer appeal period, and throughout this appeal period, then the rating schedule changes. So if you are not currently service connected for one of these conditions, what will happen is they will stage it and they will evaluate you based on the old and new criteria. But if you are already service connected for this condition, they're not going to reduce you just because the rate and schedule change. Same thing with the grand service connection. They're not going to punish you because the law changed. That's what it comes down to. So
Got it. Okay.
again, a rate and evaluation cannot be reduced solely because of a change to the rate and schedule. And this law changed August 13th, 1991. So if the rate and schedule change was after 1991, then it does not matter. The law does not protect evaluations assigned prior to that date. However, if those evaluations have been in effect for more than 20 years, they are also protected under 3.952, which is the protection for claims or service connection granted for things like 5, 10, and 20 years, things of that nature. So basically, it's really not anything to worry about. These are the laws, and they're there to protect the veterans, even though people don't always believe that VA is looking out
Right.
for their best interest. It's true. That's why they made laws like this, so it doesn't put the veteran over. For real, this is a great law. So if the condition would have been reduced under the prior schedule, then it is appropriate to reduce the evaluation for that condition. But if the condition, again, would not be reduced under the prior schedule, then it's inappropriate to reduce the evaluation of the condition.
Okay.
So, again, if the claim is pending, then it's basically going to be up to the rater to properly apply the schedule. So they're going to pick whatever evaluation criteria is more beneficial to the veteran. So if that old criteria is more beneficial, they're going to do that. If the new criteria is more beneficial, they're going to grant it under the old. And then on the date of the law change, they can put that more beneficial evaluative criteria into effect. So trust me, they're really looking to do this the right way. This is a great law that protects the veterans when the law changes. And yeah, the only other thing, and I actually didn't do a slide for this, I forgot, but the only other thing to note, VA did update a mess of DBQs. So I don't think they have hit the public site, but I do know they're forthcoming. So if they're not there, then don't stress it. They just probably, I don't maybe they're just working on them still, or working on getting them published. But a lot of the DBQs did change, and even I think a couple of the neurological ones they were saying were going to change because they had digestive considerations in it. I don't know. I'm trying to think what that would be. Maybe Parkinson's or whatever. But yeah, so that is your down and dirty, nitty gritty updates of the adjustment to the rating schedule. So I'm sure we'll see a lot of these questions and have people asking about them, but really hope that helps some people out. And then, yeah, so I'll just hand it back over to Steph so we can kick off the Q&A.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we have very many questions tonight, so we can be done early.
We might be done early. Unfortunately, Facebook is just giving us fits again.
That's
It is
okay.
what it is, but we'll get it.
if anybody has questions about what Jackie just put out about the digestive system, be sure to ask your questions. We'll be happy to answer them. Like she said, the 38 CFR, Chris put the link in the comment section. You can go over that at your free will and see all the changes. I know it's kind of overwhelming, but I also did a video on, just like she did a part today, I just did a small part on the IBS, GERD, and hemorrhoids. It's a very good video. I know a lot of people were filing ITFs because they wanted to be considered for both the old and the new. So if you don't have an ITF in now and you're going forward now as of May 19th, then you want to file either for an increase or separating, which I'm glad Jackie mentioned that rule about the potential, because Blake and I were talking about that, not knowing about not being.
Steph, real quick. So if you're going to file to put a new claim in for this to be separated, I just want to throw out there, if you're already service connected for it and you believe that's going to result in an increased valuation, you're going to want to file it on a 526 EZ. You do not want to file, I guess you could do an appeal, but you don't want them to kick it back and say it was the wrong form and it was a request for application, because then you're just going to eat up your valuable time. So it can be considered under appeals, but it's generally appropriate to just go ahead and put for the increase if you think it's going to be beneficial to you. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
I dropped the link to that video in the description as well for the digestive system changes. So if you guys want to watch that as well.
And be sure
Get more questions.
there's two parts. There's a couple questions.
Yeah.
Can we see?
I'm just saying I dropped the video in there, so we'll get to
Yeah, if anybody's got, so anybody who's listening right now, if you have questions, now is your time to ask, because I know we've been gone for a while. So it is what it is. But if you have questions, ask now, because as soon as we go through the questions, we're gone. Peace out. Hey, you like my nails? Aren't they pretty?
Oh, they are pretty.
First one, two-parter from Andy. All right, Steph?
Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay. Two-parter. All right. Andy Garcia. I like the name. Filed for OSHA in December, secondary to cyanitis. Then filed new claim for neck and back with nexus, diagnosis, medical records, and personal statements in February. They combined it into a single claim. OSHA granted in April. Neck and back was deferred, but today was denied. They said no nexus and no diagnosis and no records, but I can see they are attaching the closed claim for neck and back. HLR question mark. So without me actually, I'm going to answer first. Without me actually seeing the decision, I can't really say. Go ahead, Blake.
I was going to say, if you can see that the evidence is there, then an HLR, and yet it wasn't listed, then I think an HLR is appropriate. Is that right, Jackie? If they didn't say they used his?
I would check the evidence list to see if they put those private nexus things in there. But here's the thing with the private nexus, and I say it a lot. Most of what's out there and what people are having their doctors write, or whatever crackerjack paid for predator that they're doing, unfortunately their nexuses aren't sufficient for rating purposes, so they're lacking in something, so they can still be considered. Like if you have a doctor that says it is more likely than not that this condition is actually due to this, that, or the other thing, it can be considered. But if the medical opinion is not sufficient, it's in the manual on what is required for a valid medical opinion, then VA is going to go and just order another one. So even though you submitted all that evidence, it may have not been able to be used for rating purposes. As far as the combination of claims go for initial claims, they're not trying to have veterans have 10 claims going. If it's, especially if it's new claims. So it's completely normal and appropriate for them to be combined. And it sounds like you were on two different timelines because you submitted them at two separate times, or maybe the OSA was just done quicker. So, that's okay. They piecemealed it. They actually did you a solid. They gave you a rating on what they could, and then gave you the second rating later. It's not, they didn't re-separate it. They just deferred it so they could do the rest of the development. If you disagree with the decision, you can absolutely, I given on what you said, I would absolutely do, like Blake said, a higher level review unless you have additional evidence. But if you don't, and you just want a senior reviewer to verify that the decision was correct, then that would be the right way to go.
Make sure you check the box on the HLR if you want an informal conference. A lot of veterans don't understand why they don't get phone calls or get spoken to. That's because they failed to check the box. So if you want an informal conference and you want your voice to be heard regarding the HLR, because under the HLR you cannot present any new evidence, however you can provide your argument, which if your argument, Andy, is the evidence was there and it was ignored according to you, and you can prove that, then you would probably want an informal conference to at least speak on your behalf and state why you think the claim should be granted. So, but again, without seeing the complete decision, that's kind of where we are with all of us agreeing on an HLR.
Yeah, and if you think the evidence might have not been considered, then HLR is the way to go. Make sure that they verify it was. I mean, it could be that it was, but
Yep.
at least you're double checking.
Okay, Jeff Connors, just been diagnosed. Okay, this must be OSHA tonight. OSA and CPAP needed. Service connected for asthma, sinusitis, rhinitis, GERD, and tinnitus. All of these are related to OSA. Would a nexus letter be needed to show my OSA is connected to one of these? Well, first of all, you just got diagnosed with OSA and you've been granted a CPAP to wear. What does your doctor say is causing your OSA? Because that would be what my first question would be. Blake, Jackie?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would look and see, what other risk factors do you have that could outweigh the possible connection to one of those. There are plenty of people out there with asthma and sinusitis and rhinitis that don't have OSA. So yes, while they are
Related.
they does not necessarily mean that it caused it. If you are 50 pounds overweight, then the weight gain alone is going to outweigh any of those things. So talk to your doctor about what they believe caused it, and if they believe that it is a contributing factor, then ask them to put that into your chart for each one of them.
And didn't we have this conversation the other day about GERD?
Yeah.
OSA does not cause GERD. Or I'm sorry, GERD does
No.
not cause OSA.
Well, arguably tinnitus would not cause it either.
Correct.
Right.
I mean,
You never know. You never
Right.
know. Kind of throw spaghetti at the wall, I guess. But
Yeah.
if you're certified for asthma, it's going to be combined with that. Just throwing it out there. So
yeah, that's going to be my next. If that was going to be my next statement, good catch, Jackie, too, is if you're already rated for asthma, which you said you are, Jeff, just for example, let's say you're 30%, because you didn't say what you were, but if you're 30% for asthma and okay, you get OSA at 50, it's going to be combined. You're not going to get both ratings.
You're going to end up with a 50% rating.
Right. So under the rating criteria for respiratory, COPD, I think I'm right, asthma and OSA all fall under that pyramiding.
You'll lose your 30%. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie. He'll lose his 30% for asthma, but gain 50% for the combined.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. With the CPAP, if he was evaluated 30% for asthma, it would turn into OSA with and asthma, and a 50% evaluation would take
And
effect.
just keep in mind, Jeff, even if you're trying to go another route and not service connected to, well, you wouldn't for asthma, but let's say sinusitis, rhinitis, GERD, or tinnitus, again, even if you got it secondary, you've already got asthma. So you have to kind of weigh the factors of how much it's worth it to try for it, I guess.
And it might reopen all of those things that you're claiming it's secondary to for reevaluation.
How does that change with is there a new sleep apnea?
It hasn't come out yet.
Hasn't come out yet. Okay.
It's projected for the end of the summer, I think.
Yeah, they're
That's what I heard. For
Always subject to change.
Yep. Anyway, laughing guy is still supporting the channel.
Man, dude, you're awesome.
Thanks, sir.
You're one of our best and only supporters, and we appreciate it. We really do. Honestly, thank you.
He's a big supporter of the group, so we really appreciate it.
Chris was just talking tonight. He wants to do a quick short video just to show how much equipment we have. This is what it takes to do a video that comes out for like 2 minutes or a live for an hour. But we appreciate it. Laughing with you.
Right.
But yeah, so just to recap for you, Jeff, you're free to file those to the OSA to those as secondaries. Blake brought up a good point too, as well, that if you file secondary to any of those, they will be evaluated. They will be looked at as well because you're filing as a secondary to a primary. So just that and the potential pyramiding would kick in. Okay. Lon Tho. I'm rated for 10% IBS. My symptoms should have been rated higher. Feel like I was lowballed, but scared to touch it since I'm around 100% PNT. Okay, well, you either are or you're not. Are you 100% PNT or you are? And
he says that he probably is.
Huh?
He said that he is. He's just scared to reopen the claim.
Yeah, leave it alone. You're 100% PNT. I mean, is eczema and chronic how do you say that, Blake?
Idiopathic urticaria.
Still a combining rate. I was 10% for eczema, and I filed for CIU years later, separate treatment for both, but was combined together at 30. I still don't understand if you're 100% PNT.
That's gonna end up being pyramiding.
There's no rating schedule change for skin, so no, it was just the last changes were just digestive. So no, nothing's changed. So if you're combined, because that's like what, hives. Yeah, that's still appropriate to combine those. So
I mean, I don't see any reason to open up IBS. The max is 30%, and you're 100% PNT. So I don't see the rationalization for opening it. Anybody else see the rationale? No. Okay. Yeah.
The only way it could potentially be beneficial, I mean, he's PNT, but in the off chance that something like it's reopened or they found an error, maybe that you would need that little bump. But honestly, if you needed service connection for it, I'd probably say maybe you should claim it. But since you're service connected for it,
I
look at the new rating schedule and see if it's more clearly defined that you would meet that higher evaluation. I mean, you may feel you were lowballed, but maybe that's the evidence that was, it's the whole evidentiary record. So all your records and stuff may have supported that evaluation. So you got to take a look and determine what's better for you.
Right. And I mean, I guess the other thing too, to touch on that, I guess maybe I might be going off on a tangent here, is if you were like 100% for one disability, and let's say you had 50% in ratings, and if you got that bump, you could qualify for SMC-S, right?
It's 100, one disability at 100% and 60.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If let's say he was that, but he only had 50% of disabilities, then maybe.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, then maybe it would. But all of us are of the opinion I just keep it in the back pocket. Just
I'd leave it alone.
Like Jackie said, if the off chance, you're 100% PNT, which means all your disability is static, the VA does not deem you getting any better, go on with life, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Leave it in your back pocket. If something comes back down the road and the VA says, "Oh, hey, wait a minute," then maybe. So that's our opinion.
You can put in for the increase for getting the IBS. I mean, it's 10%, like, so it's not that bad. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, we got $5 from Matthew. Thanks, we appreciate it. He's a longtime listener too. I like how it says lemon. Wait, bring that back up. It says what? Lemon character, because I know we can't see it.
It's
Lemon
an
character.
emoji.
Lifting a baby lemon in the air, congratulating. I love it. This is awesome. Thank you. We appreciate it, Matt.
All right. Looney Tune here is going to have a two-parter.
Looney Tune?
Yeah.
I love these names.
Right? This should be interesting.
Okay. My rating hasn't been finalized yet. So will I fall under the old or the new criteria? They are saying 10%, but I feel I meet the criteria for 30, given I have had several dilations over the years and sleep issues. What are we talking about?
we just went over this. It's digestive. We
Okay.
literally just went over this.
Is there a two-parter? My sleep issues are from regurgitation of acid. Any recommendation? Blake, anything on medical side?
Just she needs to talk to her physician, but their physician, I didn't see a name. Sorry.
Looney Tune.
Because they need to elevate the head of the bed at least 20 to 30 degrees, and which will help with sleep tremendously.
So
2x4s under there.
I'm a little confused. If the rating hasn't been finalized yet, how do you know if you're 10 but you think you're 30?
That's what I was
They're
thinking.
They're just speculating based on the CFR. So essentially, and we just went through this. So
Okay.
sorry, this sounds redundant. So remember, change to the rating schedule. So if you think that the new criteria is more beneficial and that will it result in a higher evaluation, what they'll do is for the time prior to May 19th, they're going to evaluate you based on the historical criteria. And then if the new criteria is more advantageous to you and would result in that 30% evaluation, they'll make that effective from May 19th.
Okay.
But they can't grant if that was accurate, and obviously you don't know because you don't have your rating decision. They can't give you that 30% evaluation prior to the date of the law change.
And the sleep issues from the regurg, I mean, I could see waking up, right, and having sleep problems. So if you're having sleep issues, that would be more on the mental health side, like insomnia. So if you're having issues sleeping because of this service connected, if it becomes service connected, then you could possibly file mental health secondary, so long as you can prove that the primary has caused the secondary sleep issues, insomnia. And so long as you're not rated for mental health currently, because you can only have one rating for mental health other than an eating disorder, and insomnia falls under mental health.
Except in exceptional cases.
Except in exceptional cases. And that's another thing. Maybe you could since we've got some time, since we don't have any other questions, we can get on.
Now,
Insomnia.
we got other things yet still, so.
Okay, well, hold on. Insomnia, Jackie. I've seen a lot of stuff floating around the internet, how you can be rated separately for insomnia, even if you have mental health. But it's very confusing. But you just said there's exceptions to the rule. So is it possible that a veteran that is service connected for mental health, let's say PTSD, and suffers with insomnia, they can be rated separately if they can distinguish the symptoms?
Yeah, it's really going to come down to if somebody can differentiate between or delineate the symptoms between one condition and the other. So if the veteran is service connected for PTSD, it would essentially take the examiner to say that the sleep impairment was not due to the PTSD, it was only due to insomnia. And then they would actually have to have the diagnosis, like a diagnosable sleep disorder. And because there's so much overlap, and just, I mean, honestly, just from the very nature of PTSD, what does it include? Nightmares, recurrent dreams. Like, so the very nature of PTSD screams sleep disturbances. So with PTSD, I think it would be less likely. Maybe with another mental health disorder, maybe like something like anxiety, where chronic sleep impairment's not a symptom. But because there's so much overlap and it's subjective, you'd be really, 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 really hard pressed to find an examiner that would, or a doctor that would say, "Oh, no kidding, that your your sleep impairment solely due to the insomnia, not at all due to the mental health." It's
Right.
so rare to see them separate. It's just, it's a possibility, but not a good one. I think you would have
It's
better chance of hitting $5 on a scratch ticket or something.
it's like TBI and PTSD, where 90% of the time it's combined because they share the same symptoms. In order to have the TBI rated separately, it has to have separate and distinct symptoms from the PTSD. And so that's why we get a lot of those questions in the group. You know, hey, I'm rated for PTSD and I was TBI. Now they've combined it because I went for an increase. So
Yeah, because TBI is like neurological by nature, and usually,
yeah,
I mean, think about it. TBI, so traumatic brain injury, often results in some sort of mental health, especially
yeah,
PTSD. So if you look on the DBQ, it actually has the section under, I think, the diagnosis section, and it actually asks if the examiner can delineate between the symptoms. And
right.
that's really where they make that distinction.
Okay.
And it will say specifically unable to overlap, and the examiner has to put why. They have to substantiate it. So unable to substantiate due to speculation because there's so much overlap or whatever. They have to explain it.
Right.
And
Thank you,
just to add
Peter.
to Jackie's comparison to spending $5 on better luck hitting $5 on the scratch it, the odds of that aren't very good either. Don't ask me how I know that. I just do.
Um, well, thank you for breaking that down. I just kind of wanted to touch basis on that because I heard that. And just to follow up with Looney Tunes, um, I I'm sure you've been. He says he's been. He or she. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be saying that. Tired. Tried the bed raising, but doesn't work. 20 years of this condition. Um, Unfortunately, we don't know a lot about what's going on with regards to your history of your claims. If you want to talk more and a little bit more and give us a little bit more in-depth information, feel free to email us, Looney Tune, redact your personal information, and then maybe I can get a little bit more understanding of what you're trying to accomplish and where you are in regards to your claims. Um, Thank you, Peter, for the $10 donation. We truly appreciate it. Um, he's a longtime listener too.
All right, we got to get Shem Howard back up here. Blake pointed out I missed him. He didn't wait a minute, so we're going to keep
Okay. I hear so many different stories about the 55-year-old rule. Please explain re-exams after the age of 55. All right, I'm going to explain how I think I know it, and then I'm going to either let Jackie say yay or no and correct me. So the 55-year rule, a lot of veterans think that after you hit 55, you're no longer going to be examined by the VA. Now, that is so long as you don't open any new claims after the age of 55. So if you are 54 and all your disabilities are static, you're not expected to have what's called an RFE, a routine future exam. If you go at age 57 and decide, hey, I need to open up a claim, so I'm going to file this, then you could be subjected. Jackie?
Yeah, so for future exams, yeah, you got it pretty much spot on stuff. It's been a long day.
I know.
So I'm just going to touch real quick on since we're slow tonight. So
Yeah.
basically routine future exams. All right. So if a condition has persisted without material improvement for a period of 5 or more years, it could be considered static, right? Likelihood of improvement is conceded. In cases of the veterans over 55 years, you're not going to generally get a routine future exam. Awesome stuff that you said, like if you're 54 and some change, you can have a routine future exam if you're 54, but they're not supposed to schedule an examination if you're going to turn 55 before you have that examination. The exception would be there are some conditions in the CFR that mandate there is a mandatory exam. The most common one would be if you have a malignancy, such as cancer. After you finish treatment or surgery, 6 months after, you're mandated by the 38 CFR to have an examination. There might be a few more out there, but that's the one that came to mind.
TDIU
obviously, no likelihood of improvement. That's where we hear the static. When the condition is prescribed the scheduler minimum, so like basically almost the lowest evaluation you can have for something. So like if it's musculoskeletal and it's a 10, they're not going to schedule a routine future exam for that because it's the scheduler minimum.
What about TDIU? I see this all the time with older veterans, like they're in their 60s, 70s, and if you're applying for TDIU, which I'm saying the acronym, so it's total disability for individual unemployability. So if you go like say 60 and you want to apply for IU, I mean, first of all, you're going to get examined because you're stating that the IU is due to a service-connected disability, is preventing you from being gainfully employed. So there's a lot of things that come in. I just think veterans think that once they turn 55, they're done. Well, in a sense, you could be done if you no longer file any claims, all short of fraud or Q or, clear and unmistakable error. But anybody over the age of 55, if they file a claim, they do subject themselves. So the 55-year rule is really only if you don't plan to file any more claims and you just go on with life.
Right. So routine future exams, and you brought this up, stuff.
Yeah.
It's if the condition's not static, that's not. If you put in a new claim, you're probably going to have to go to exam. If you open up IU, you're probably going to have to. Excuse me.
Uh-oh.
I thought they would be good. I obviously was wrong. So, and now I lost my train of thought. Of course,
you were talking about the routine exams.
I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. If you file a claim for TDIU, they're going to try to go off the evidence of record. They ain't trying to schedule you for 10 different exams for what you're service connected for. Now, if they're unsure on some of the things, absolutely, but they're going to try to go off the evidence of record. And if you didn't know, at the bottom of the DBQs, most of them have a section that asks specifically what the functional and economic impairment of your service or the claim disability is. So a lot of time they can just look at the previous exams and solicit that information.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, security system engaged. Generally, my husband's traveling, so generally he's here making sure they behave. So
are you alone?
Cheese wrapper?
I'm alone.
The Marine's alone.
Oh. They must have heard a cheese wrapper at the doorbell or something.
They must have heard cheese wrapper.
It's probably Amazon.
That's right.
All right. LL, what is everyone's view on filing claims through a non-VA accredited company? Do you get marked negatively by the VA? Well, first, as Jackie sips her drink on this one, first of all,
I'll just sit back and eat my popcorn.
Yeah, first of all,
water.
Yeah, let Jackie answer this one.
I want to answer it too, because she and I are on the same page as Blake is too, and you are too.
Go ahead, Steph. Go for the jugular.
Non-predatory companies are non-accredited VA companies. They are out to take veterans for their money, anywhere from 5 times your back pay. I just helped a veteran the other day, 50%, 50, that he signed a contract and engaged them and is now in collections because he did refuse to pay them, but he's actually obligated to pay them. So does the VA look negatively and mark you? No. It's your decision on who you want to hire for your rep to represent you. But I'm telling you, these predatory companies are being investigated by the VA, and hopefully they're going to pass down where they have to be accredited, because I'm sick and tired of seeing these predatory companies taking veterans' money. And I understand sometimes veterans, you get frustrated and you don't know where to go and you think the only place to turn is to one of these companies.
And they
There's,
have all these advertisements out there that guarantee they'll get you to 100%. No
yeah,
one can guarantee that.
no.
And, you know, when they screw up and you want to get out of your contract with them, if you read the contract, there is little to no way to get out of it.
And the other thing, 90% work is done by you, the veteran, because they have no access to your claim information. So you're basically signing with them to give them 20, 30, 40, 50% of your back pay, and you're doing all the work, because at the end they're telling you, hey, can you give us an update? Hey, have you been granted? Hey, here's our nexus letter that we cut, copy, and paste. And oh, by the way, put your name on it. But we forgot to change it and use the previous veteran's information. Oh God, I could go on and on and on.
And you owe $1,600 additional to your back pay
Right.
for the letter.
But to go to your question, are you marked negatively? Absolutely not. Just the VA is aware, and Jackie could touch on this. The VA is aware of these predatory companies, these nexus letters that are stamped, rubber stamped, cut and copy and paste. So a lot of them are in the Raiders' radar. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's,
And they keep adding these companies. So like Remedical is a big one. Well, guess what? They just got a cease and desist letter from the IG because they're predatory. They coach veterans how to commit fraud. So although VA does not look at you negatively, I personally, as a veteran, would not want my name associated with one of those companies because they are under investigation. They don't care about you. They don't care about your benefits. They're blowing smoke up your booty just like a used car salesman. All they want is your money. And you can do it without them. There's so much information out of there. We got
And the
videos,
longer
Q&As,
and
we have,
yeah,
they don't do anything special. All
the
right.
longer they draw it out, the more money they make from you.
Especially with the board ones. And what they'll do is, like Blake said, they'll send a letter saying, oh, could we have a status on the claim? And that substantiates them being able to do it. Unless they're accredited, don't pay them money, because at least if they're accredited, even if they charge a fee, which in my opinion is still BS, but if they charge a fee, you're still protected because they've been vetted and allowed by VA to be an accredited agent. So you're kind of protected. They won't charge you more than 20%. But if you have people asking you for money up front, anything over 20%, and they're not credited, you should literally turn around and walk away.
you know what's sad? There are accredited attorneys that are 33 and a third. That irritates me too. But what irritates me most is a lot of these predatory companies are veteran owned.
Oh yeah, because
Yep.
you know why? Who better to know how to scam veterans than other veterans? Not every veteran is a hero. Not every veteran is a good person. Not every veteran has integrity. And that is perfectly exemplified in these people's actions. Stay away from them. They suck and they will
Yep.
bleed you dry. Your money belongs in your pocket because it's your disabilities, not
Yep.
these idiots.
So circling back, LL, no, you do not, you, the veteran, do not look, are not marked negatively by the VA. They still have to abide by the law, rules, and regulations. You still have to have your claim adjudicated fairly. They still have a duty to assist you. So at the end of the day, yeah, they're not looking to, oh, rubber stamp you because you hired this company. It's unfortunate. I just hope you don't go with a non-accredited company, especially the ones, and I'm going to go on this, especially the ones that tell you do not attend your C&P exam. I cannot stand when I hear that. And some veterans say, oh, well, I won. Okay, great. But out of 1 for every 10, if they're telling you to go to an exam, you damn well better go to that exam. That's all I have to say, because that is the quickest way to get your butt denied.
Well, I mean, and Peter, obviously that's not the scenario that we're talking about. I'm glad that you got somebody knowledgeable to help you with your claim. We're talking about these predatory companies that are like, and a lot of times they'll be like, oh, we can do everything for you. We can fill out the DBQs and we can provide the nexus medical opinions and stuff. They literally cut and paste from one veteran to the other. And most of the time they'll write 15 pages of fluff that isn't relevant. Like they write, we see it all the time with working with the veterans on this page. The crap that they write and how they try to substantiate it. Even when you hear people having positive experiences, I promise you, the majority of those opinions were sent for a VA medical opinion. So the veteran thinks they won their claim because these companies were helping them and the statements they provided. But no, they still sent it for another medical opinion because it wasn't sufficient. So, they also misrepresent themselves with the success rate, because then it has nothing to do with them and what they did for the veteran. It has everything to do with VA. So VA gets the bad rep, and then these predators get a good rep and just get to.
And Blake looks at, I get him all the time in email, and I shoot him right over to Blake, and then he shoots him right back and goes beep 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 beep.
Three or four a week, easy.
Yep.
And then even without the medical thing, like, is it sufficient for rating purposes? Are they going to be able to use it to adjudicate your claim? And the answer is just most. I'm not saying every time, and I'm not saying there's not good doctors out there. There absolutely are. Absolutely are good people out there. But
go Navy.
What?
Go Navy.
But you have to make sure you protect yourself. Keep your money where it belongs, and it's in your pocket.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got off on a tangent, Chris. We apologize.
We beat a dead horse. Go.
That's what he'll tell us. Bobby Jacobs, can there be a link between heart condition being secondary to PTSD? Blake?
Well, first of all, heart condition.
Hold on, Blake. There's a two-parter.
Okay.
I asked about secondary heart disease because I just got out of the hospital and diagnosed with ischemic heart disease, coronary artery disease, and as now I have to wear a cardiac vest.
I'm going to tell you that there's a very, very slim connection. If I had to rate it as a percentage, it might be 1 or 2%, and you're not going to find a doctor out there that's going to say it's more likely than not to have caused, or at least likely not as to cause, than any number of other factors, from smoking to obesity to genetics to just being a male.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So.
I'll caveat on what Blake said. Like medically side, yeah, I don't disagree. However, I have seen it. You guys have probably seen it too, but it's not something easy to prove.
Yeah. People die of a broken heart, and that's emotionally related. So yes, but the fact that, and specifically, if your sentinel event for your PTSD was 20 years ago, and you're just now being diagnosed with these things, that's even probably going to make it even more remote chance.
And he says he's 94%, so he's rounded down to 90. So I'm assuming that he's looking for that next 10% bump to get to 95. So hopefully that answered your question. I hope you're feeling better first and foremost. Sounds like you had a lot of issues going on. So prayers that you're on the road to recovery, at least for that, for your health, Bobby. All right, next question is a two-parter, Chris said. AFET, I had 2 DBQs for GERD, one by my doctor and one by VES contractor. My doc checked severe combination of symptoms, 60%, and the VES said considerable combination of symptoms at 30. The VA wants me to go to
Go
a
to a
third.
third.
Yep, I want them to rate based on the 2. What you want and what you get are 2 different things. You've got.
My mama would say people in hell want ice water, but they don't get
I
it.
mean, I'm being brutally honest tonight. First of all, you have 2 medical opinions that are different. So they're sending you to a third opinion so that they can hopefully get the opinion correct.
Well, it's not
Your
exam.
what?
That's the exam. It's not the opinion.
Right. And the V. So your first DBQ was done by your doctor. So no offense, it's probably more persuasive for you because it's your doctor and they filled it out accordingly. Then you went to a contracted one at VES and it's lower. So now the rater's doing their due diligence and sending you to a third one. I'm not sure if you're going back to VES. I'm not sure. And here's the other thing. I'm not even sure. It may be a records only review. You may not need to be seen. They may just be taking the 2, and Jackie can maybe answer on that. They may just be reviewing all of the evidence of record and then going to make the determination. But the point is you going to a third one because you have 2 difference of opinions.
I think there could be so many different things, but my instinct right now is to say something to the effect of, wow, maybe something was insufficient, because to have to report to yet another exam after you've already been examined would be unusual with a private DBQ already of record. And then the BS one, because generally the benefit of the doubt is supposed to go to the veteran. So I kind of think maybe there was something like an issue maybe with the sufficiency of it. And if not, look, and this is the sad nature of it right now. So PACT Act came out the end of 2022, right? So VA did crazy hiring, not just for raters and VSRs, but for doctors, for support personnel. They hired everybody and their mother, and they're still hiring. So unfortunately, learning how to work the claims takes a really long time. And on average, it can take, 18 to months to 3 years to really start to understand and become proficient. So with that being said, there is a lot of new people working. So I'm not saying that's okay and I'm not saying that's great, but this is the, double-edged sword for the PACT Act. They hired a bunch of new people and everybody's still learning their jobs because the job takes freaking forever to learn. Same thing with Social Security. They did a mass hiring too. So I think it's unusual. I highly recommend you go to your exam, let them reconcile that conflicting evidence of record, and move on and give you your evaluation and rating.
He touched on it. Chris, can you put it up? He said that his contractor was first. Okay. The contractor was first, VES. The doctor was second. Okay. The third is now in person. My doc and the VES stand in
Just go to the exam. It's been ordered, and unfortunately, right, wrong, or indifferent, if you don't show up for the exam, it's not going to reflect favorably on you. Are you service connected for it or not?
So it looks like he's STR. Well, he has another note. STR has GERD diagnosed in service, so I don't think he's service connected yet for GERD.
Go to the exam, because no matter what you do, if you don't show up for the exam or you have failure to report, it's going to reflect negatively on you. So just go.
And at the end of the day, let the claim get adjudicated. If you don't agree with it, you can appeal. I know you want to get it right the first time. I don't blame you. But at the same time, the VA has to do this, and it's their duty to assist and do another exam. So, because there's a difference of opinions. I've heard of veterans go to like 4 or 5 exams. So, like I said, at the end of the day, don't miss the exam. And just to touch on something else that's in the comment sections, it says Bobby Jacobs, if you're still on, he says he's just trying to figure out the last 10% is correct. I only ask because that is what my lawyer is thinking. So what would you recommend? Well, just got out of the hospital today and thinking of my family first. Well, if you have an attorney, I'm not sure why you have an attorney. First of all, I don't know what's going on, but if you have an attorney, you need to take the advice of your attorney. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
why are you paying him to ask people on a live that you don't know? I always find that funny. My attorney says, well, why are you paying for the attorney? Listen to them.
right,
He's trying to get to 100% because
of his
you know
family.
if he dies, they get DIC.
Well,
Right. Well,
what you can hope for is to be fairly and accurately
Yeah.
evaluate for your service-connected disabilities. This ain't one of those sites.
so if the, I don't know what your lawyer is telling you or whatnot, but if you've got a lawyer, I'd be highly talking to the lawyer, and discussing it as well. AF vet, he's trying to say if the evidence is, it goes to the veteran per the M21.
That I just said. So yes, but again, if you don't show up for the examination, it's going to reflect badly on you. Whereas you're not service connected, you don't want them to deny you based on you no showing for an examination. So this is the card. This is the hand. Just go because it's in your best interest.
Is he saying he doesn't want to go to the third exam?
Yeah.
No. Did he say no? He was just wondering why he had the third exam when they had the private and
Okay.
contractor one.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
It's impossible for it. We can only speculate. We can
Right.
only speculate. We don't know what's going on and why they did it, you know?
And back to Bobby, he says he is the one that said secondary to PTSD. Well, I guess he's a lawyer. He's not a medical doctor. So does
And the whole tie goes to the veteran is
so I'll go to HLR.
mainly about service connection, not necessarily about
No, it
rating,
can be
correct?
no, it can be for evaluations too.
So hold on. Hold on.
38.7
Put up
for the
AF Vet's last comment. Put it. So I'll go to HR. I don't want them to have a third. I don't want to have a third that is the same as the BS. So basically what you're saying, AF Vet, is you want to be stubborn and you don't want to go to this exam, and then you're going to go to the HLR and argue what? That you refused to go to the exam and that's why you were denied and you want it to be adjudicated between the two exams? That's not how it goes. So if that's your way you want to go and you don't want to go to the exam, don't go.
Why would you not want to go to exam? It's so simple to show up.
Because he's afraid. I understand what he's
That's
saying.
what I'm saying. You've got two letters, fine. Show up to
But
the
what happens if the third exam agrees with your private doctor?
Yeah.
right.
If you don't show up for an exam, they're going to make the decision based on the evidence of record. And honestly, if you're not service connected, this could all be moot because maybe they don't get the favorable opinion. So
Well, he said the GERD is in his service record. Was diagnosed in service.
well, that doesn't mean if there's no chronicity or continuation of symptoms from service, just because
Like
it's
when was he
in the
diagnosed?
service records doesn't mean it gets service connected every time.
Right. You need the three elements. Just because it was in your service records doesn't mean it's an automatic grant. You still have to have the current chronic issues. But again, I mean, that's fine if your GERD's chronic. What we're just saying is if you don't want to go to the exam, that's on you. They'll base the decision on the evidence of record. But when you go to the HLR and they see that you failed to show up for an exam because of a difference of opinion, you're not going to have a good argument. So, I mean, and again, just like what Blake said, what if this third exam gives you the benefit of the doubt and they agree with what your doctor stated, not what the other doctor stated? So I guess at the end of the day, we're beating a dead horse, but you can go or not go. That's your decision. But I don't know what leg you would have to stand on. Huh?
I would go.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd go.
I'd go too. It's not going to hurt you, AF Vet. So, I mean, Bobby Jacobs, he says I have been sent to the same examiner on 4 different occasions.
Do we have any more questions? I'm over arguing with somebody who
Yeah,
asked for
so I
this.
think we do.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's trying to get at here, but
I think he is.
There's an accredited agent site. Chris, can you put it in the chat?
OGC.
I'll tell you
Can you put
accredited
that
agent.
link in there, Chris? OGC website. Do you want me to send it to you?
yeah, I'll put it in there.
Okay. So what Jackie's saying is there is a website which I post all the time. It's OGC website where you can find we can find BSOs, you can find accredited agents and accredited attorneys. Now keep in mind the accredited agent and attorneys do not have to be in your county or city, but if I'm correct, the VSO does, right, Jackie? You can't go see, like, you can't be in another state or whatever for a VSO. You have to be in the same one, correct?
I
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay.
I think as long as they're accredited, they could be nationwide. I do think VSOs in different states, because they just have a big workload, they might be reluctant to take other people outside of their area,
Right.
but I think they can.
Okay. Okay. So we just put the link in the description section. Okay, Cinco Blue. I have been recently awarded 100%, but I still have remanded claims that haven't been decided. Am I still eligible for additional pay depending on my award date? Well, a lot of things would come into factor there. If you were just recently 100%, I don't know the date of when you were awarded the 100%, what you were before that, and if these claims that are on remand would change your 100%, because you have to keep in mind, unless it changes your overall percentage, there's no more additional back pay. But
Well,
at the same
unless
time,
unless
I
those
would not
unless those
hold on,
remanded
hold on,
claims,
hold on. At the same time, I would not give up the claims. I would let them finish out. Go ahead, Blake.
if the remanded claims were filed before whatever brought them to 100%, wouldn't it go back to the date of the intent to file or of those remanded claims?
Well, they're remanded, so I don't know if it was like remand to me is an appeal, so that makes sense. I don't know how many years back.
A remand is what the Board of Veteran Appeals does when they
Yeah.
can't make a
Right.
decision on a claim and it needs something else. So if it's all going to depend on what your potential effective dates are. So because you had things remanded, when they make a decision, like Steph said, if it's going to allow you to have a higher evaluation prior to you getting 100, you'll still get back pay and whatever monies that is owed to you for that period before you got 100. It's really just going to depend on what your overall evaluation is and when it happened from the time they grant entitlement.
Hey, just real quick, AF Vet, you're welcome and good luck and keep us updated. He appreciated the recommendation to go. So that is a good point too on the remand, but again, if it at this point, without knowing all the information, we're kind of in the dark. We don't know when the 100% was effective, when the remands were remanded, what was the original date of that, were you X percent and now? So there's a lot of factors into that question to be answered, unfortunately.
all right. This is RM Cherry.
Okay.
I try to get a little more clear. Maybe you guys can understand the question better than I can.
Sorry, I joined late. I have a question. Once you have filed clothing allowance, I don't have to file again for my back again? Well, so for clothing allowance, right now I receive clothing allowance for 2 devices for my braces. I'm grandfathered in, so I know you're supposed to have to no longer file for clothing allowance, but some places do require it. I'm not sure about all of the VHAs and whatnot, but I don't know about the back again. Are you referring to your back and you're wearing a back brace and you're trying to file for clothing allowance for the back brace? If you're still on, let's see.
I asked for clarification to see if they come
Okay.
back.
Okay.
Live Life is posting a 3-parter right now.
Okay.
So
I'm
right.
going to call dibs on this one.
which one?
The
Can I
live life.
read it first?
Yeah, I already see it coming up.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just gonna break it. I'm gonna break it down.
I'll shut up. I'll read the question.
All right.
I'm gonna wait for the question.
Oh, they're all here, so here we go.
All right, here we go. Part 1 of 3. Sometime today. I'm confused with the denial. VA agreed in-service event, diagnosis denied, no nexus. However, the letter states, and I quote, the evidence shows that a qualifying event, injury, or disease had its onset during your service. Injured wrist on active duty 1993. Private x-rays diagnosed, say that word,
Tenosynovitis.
tendonitis. CMP examiner diagnosed wrist strain.
Okay.
Part 3. Didn't see a doctor until many years after service. The VA did not list my personal statement. I've already talked to this person, but go ahead.
Oh, should we?
No, go ahead. I want to hear you.
Oh, okay. So just because something happens in service isn't like a slam dunk. It raises your probability a lot. So I always like to break it down with something simple. So you can, let's say we're playing basketball and I bust my knee, right? And after I get like duty for a couple weeks, I ice it, I stay off of it, I come back, I'm good as new. No long-term injury and it heals. So there's a perfect example of an event, an injury in service, right? So it's a favorable finding because you did have an event in service, but that's only one of the necessary requirements for service connection, because you still need to have a current disability and you also need to have the chronicity. All right. So by your own account, you haven't had treatment. You didn't even, like, you haven't done anything. So your personal statement should be included. So if your personal statement wasn't in the evidence list or discussed in the narrative, that would be really, really good grounds for a higher level review, because not all the evidence was considered, and it can be considered as long as VA has it under the higher level review. All right. But, just because it happened in service, you still have to have proof for that chronicity. And of course, veterans lay statements are going to be considered. So you saying that you've had the symptoms since service, but it's unless there's evidence to the contrary. So let's say in your medical records it shows that you were in a car accident or something, that you injured your knee. Well, that would kind of refute the argument, right? Because another etiology would be a much more likely um, theory of entitlement. So, it really depends. I mean, having the event in service is huge, but it's not a slam dunk. So I highly recommend for this one that you go forth and you do the higher level review, have that decision review officer make sure that everything was properly considered, because it should have been in the evidence list. And if not, they can review it and review your lay statements and make a decision for you, a new decision.
I will add one thing to that. For a diagnosis of tenosynovitis / tendonitis by X-ray, that in itself suggests chronicity, because an acutely it does not show up on X-ray. It's only after it's been there for a long time and those tendons have started to calcify that it shows up on X-ray.
Right, but when you first report it started bothering you 20 years after service, that's where there's a lot of lapse there. So it could be chronic. I mean, it doesn't have to take 20 years to develop, right? It could be over the course of
it usually will take 7 to 10 years to develop.
Yeah.
To show on an X-ray.
Yeah. So we can't see the medical records, so.
Yeah, so that's speculation, but I would throw that in there that does indicate some chronicity of an ankle or a wrist issue.
And the personal statement, if it was received after the decision, then it's not of record. So it depends, was the personal statement submitted at the time of the claim was, submitted and or processing? because I know I understand if the personal statement, let's say the personal statement was not listed and it should have been. I guess how is a personal statement going to change? I understand your personal statement's a layman statement and it can help to attest to you, but if it's not listed in the evidence section, to me that's either didn't make it in time and it's not the record, and it wasn't in the record for evidence of record at the time.
It could be overlooked. Sometimes
Yeah.
It could have been overlooked. But the fact that it's not in the evidence list, that's if it's of record, it's arguably the duty to assist hour.
And the sentence that she quotes, which is in all of our decisions, the evidence shows that a qualifying event, injury, or disease had its onset. That doesn't, again, automatically mean because you had that onset of that event, injury, or disease that it's going to be granted. It kind of goes to bode with all the language they put in the decisions that kind of make it confusing for veterans. Like when they started putting the favorable findings, veterans think, well, okay, the favorable finding says this, so why didn't I get it granted? And I think the favorable findings just recently got put in all decisions after the PACT Act, correct, Jackie?
Nope, it was when they changed the appeals process in February 2019 that created
That's
favorable
what it was.
findings.
Okay, when the AMA was implemented, gotcha.
Okay, well, it looks like we've reached the end of our questions.
Okay, well,
So again, sorry for the technical difficulties. We're gonna get this Facebook thing sorted out. I know it's so frustrating that Facebook did this to us,
it's all
but
good.
we have to deal with what we got. So
We'll see. Everybody have a happy Memorial Day. Enjoy your weekend. Think of the fallen veterans because that's what it's about this weekend. But also enjoy with your family and friends. And hopefully, we'll try and do a live Wednesday the 5th. We'll keep you guys updated and let you know on our schedule.
all right, guys, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Right.
We'll see
Appreciate you guys. Have a good night. Bye.